She asked for an open marriage over eggs. No emotion, no build-up, just cold detachment. While she chased power and passion, he disappeared into the silence. Until he returned with receipts, a private investigator, and a plan she never saw coming. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your story. It happened over eggs. No warning. No fight. Just toast halfway to my mouth and a sentence so detached it could have been about the weather. I think we should open the marriage. My fork froze in midair. My wife, Nora, 7 years married, 3 years into a shared mortgage, didn't even blink. She just poured oat milk into her coffee like she hadn't just detonated the foundation of our life together. You've decided? I asked, keeping my voice steady. She nodded, like she'd practiced the line in her head 100 times. I think it'll restore some balance. Things have felt uneven. Uneven? I echoed. Because I load the dishwasher differently than you? She didn't laugh, didn't smile, just leaned forward. Her fingers interlaced like she was negotiating a contract, not talking to the man she once called her best friend. I've carried this marriage, Brandon. You've been stable, dependable, and safe. But I need to feel alive again. I need something that reminds me I still have teeth. That was the moment I stopped listening for love and started hearing strategy. She wasn't asking. She was notifying. This wasn't about desire. It was about dominance, reclaiming control by rewriting the rules unilaterally. I stared at her, trying to make sense of what was happening, but she was already gone, in her mind at least, planning outfits, composing flirty messages, mapping her new life like it was a brand campaign. I want alignment, she said, reaching for her phone. And if you care about me, you'll understand. The screen lit up in her hand, casting a cold glow over the woman I thought I knew. I watched her scroll as if we hadn't just stepped into a new reality. She stood, kissed my cheek and said, I have a meeting at 10. We'll talk later. I said nothing, not because I had nothing to say, but because I wanted her to sit with the silence she had just created. And then she walked out, heels tapping confidently across the floor, like she'd just checked off an item on her to-do list. I sat there, eggs cooling, toast untouched. I'm Brandon, 36. I design mid-range interiors for a boutique firm in downtown Chicago. Until this morning, I believed in routine, shared goals, and the kind of stability that builds long-term happiness. Now, I wasn't so sure what I believed in, because the woman I married just told me she wanted someone else's hands on her, and called it empowerment. And I knew this wasn't about sex. It was about power. Over the next week, I became a ghost in my own home. Nora, now radiant, energized, posed in the hallway mirror, snapped selfies, and curated her wardrobe like every day was an audition. She wore silk, strutted like she had a new script to follow. Her phone buzzed more than mine. Her laughter drifted through the condo at odd hours, muffled behind bathroom doors and closed windows. Once, she walked past me with flushed cheeks, still glowing from a voice note she'd just sent. I didn't recognize her, not because she'd changed how she looked, but because she no longer looked like she was mine. At first, I tried to pretend I was above it. I buried myself in back-to-back meetings, took on overtime, answered emails I usually ignored. I'd sit at the office long after everyone left, staring at floor plans that refused to hold my attention. When I came home, she barely looked up. You're late, she'd say, like we were roommates who occasionally crossed paths near the fridge. I'd nod, slip past her, and disappear into the bedroom. There were breadcrumbs, of course. Lipstick on glasses I never used, receipts from rooftop bars we never visited, perfume that lingered too long in the hallway. Her yoga class began ending later. Her wardrobe shifted faster. She started forgetting our shared Spotify playlists and, accidentally, left her phone face down during dinner. Maybe she wanted me to ask. Maybe she wanted me to explode. But I didn't. Not because I was weak. Because I was calculating. When you're watching someone fall in love with freedom, you don't chase. You observe. You listen. And if you're smart, you prepare. Because sometimes the best answer isn't a confrontation. It's a mirror. One that shows them exactly who they've become, and who you've decided not to be anymore. And while Nora floated through her renaissance, I was becoming someone she hadn't met yet. Someone who didn't flinch when the rules changed. Someone ready to build something stronger from the ashes, starting with the truth. The condo became a stage, and Nora played her role like she was born for it. Every day she walked through the door with a new story. Late yoga sessions, impromptu client dinners, sudden interest in nightlife she once mocked. I never confronted her. I watched, not out of fear but strategy. I stopped checking where she went. Instead, I paid attention to what she stopped doing. No more checking in, no more asking about my day. She didn't notice when I started coming home later. She didn't ask where I was. I could have vanished for a week and she would have chalked it up to space. But someone else noticed. Her name was Ivy, my team lead, sharp-eyed, unbothered, and the kind of leader who could sense when your energy changed before your voice did. One evening, after most of the office had emptied, she found me staring at a blank screen, hands still on the keyboard. "You've been somewhere else lately," she said quietly. I tried to laugh it off. "Just home stuff, nothing urgent." She handed me a ginger ale from the break room fridge, sat on the edge of the lounge couch and waited. Ivy didn't need to ask twice. "She wants to open the marriage," I said finally. Told me over breakfast, like she was changing the Wi-Fi password. Ivy didn't flinch. "And what did you say?" "Nothing," because she wasn't asking. She was announcing. She didn't interrupt, just listened. She said it's about power, that she's been carrying us, that she needs to feel something again. Ivy raised an eyebrow. "That's not empowerment. That's emotional manipulation in slow motion." The words hit me harder than I expected. Not because I didn't know it, but because I needed someone else to say it first. "She's changing the rules without your consent," Ivy said. "That's not open. That's control dressed up as freedom." I didn't reply because she was right. Nora hadn't asked for partnership. She'd rebranded selfishness as self-discovery. The worst part? I almost bought it. Later that night, I found myself sitting across from Ivy at Orville's, a quiet bar a few blocks from work. We didn't talk much. She didn't press. When I finally admitted I felt like I was disappearing, she answered without hesitation. "Then it's time to make yourself visible again." The next morning, I called the number she'd written on a napkin. "Ask for Gregory Yates," she'd said. "He's a PI, works quietly, doesn't waste words." I met him at a diner off Wilcox. No pretense. Corduroy jacket, notebook in hand. He didn't ask why. He asked for names, schedules, patterns. I handed him a small envelope, screenshots, calendar entries, a blurry photo of Nora leaving the building Friday night in a red dress I'd never seen. "I want facts," I told him. "No assumptions." "You'll have something in 7 days," he replied. Back at home, Nora was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up only briefly. "Dinner's on the stove," she said. "I got the Thai dish you like." "I don't like the shrimp version," I replied. She shrugged. "Guess I forgot." No apology, just a shrug. I made a mental note. She wasn't just preparing her exit. She'd already emotionally moved out. Over the next few days, I played the part. I smiled when necessary. I complimented her once. I asked nothing. She left for yoga more often. Her phone was always near, never unlocked. Every night, I recorded notes on my work computer. Not angry rants, just timestamps and details. Wednesday, left at 6:43 p.m. Returned 10:51. Smelled of whiskey. Friday, phone call on balcony. Whispered. Laughed. Saturday, claimed brunch with colleagues. Returned with boutique bags from another neighborhood. I didn't need to catch her cheating. I needed to understand the game she was playing. Because this wasn't infidelity for passion. This was about leverage. When Gregory delivered the envelope, I didn't open it immediately. I waited until Nora left for a facial appointment, then sat down and looked. 3 photos, her and her boss. One at a bar, her hand on his wrist, laughing. One where he kissed her cheek. And the last, both walking out of a hotel at night. No need for scandal. The timestamp was enough. But what came next changed everything. Digging through the drawer we both used, I found a stray receipt. A wire transfer. Not a purchase. A deposit. Curious, I checked our shared accounts. Then the brokerage name. Then the trail of consulting fees and insurance refunds. Over $17,000 moved quietly across 6 months. I followed the paper trail to a folder labeled Freedom Fund. Her handwriting. Inside, financial projections, timelines, rent estimates. A note underlined in red, exit clean. That's when it hit me. She hadn't just fallen out of love. She had engineered an escape, crafted a solo future while I rubbed her feet and pretended we still had a chance. She wasn't building a new life. She was subtracting me from this one. But what she didn't know was, I had already stepped out of the equation. Knowing the truth changes something. Not just emotionally, but physically. My body stopped reacting like I was under attack. No more flinching at her footsteps. No more racing heartbeat when her phone buzzed after midnight. I wasn't spiraling anymore. I was planning. I brought the photos and financial documents to Ivy the next day. We met in our usual booth at Orville's. I slid the envelope across the table. She flipped through the contents without commentary, until she saw the label on the fund. Freedom Fund? She read out loud. Then she looked at me. That's not savings. That's a lifeboat. I nodded. She was going to leave the moment it was full. She didn't just cheat, Ivy said. She rerouted your future without consent. She pulled out her phone. I'm calling someone. I'm not looking for drama, I warned. This isn't for drama. This is for precision. 10 minutes later, I was on speakerphone with Alicia Rams, a divorce attorney known for clean exits. Ivy vouched for her. Alicia's voice was calm, direct. Do you have proof of infidelity? Yes. Financial misconduct? Yes. Then we build. Quietly. Thoroughly. You'll get a clean break and everything you're owed. That night, I returned home to Nora humming in the kitchen, pretending like she still lived here honestly. She handed me a smoothie before I could speak. For my hard-working man, she said with a smile. I drank it, not because I wanted it, but because I wanted her to wonder if I still believed in anything she did. She had no idea what was already in motion. The next week was a performance, hers and mine. She played sweet again, texted me just because, invited me to yoga, started using shared playlists she once ignored. One night, she even wore the dress from our second anniversary and set out candles like nothing had happened. Just felt like a date night, she said. Pulled her chair, complimented her, toasted to new starts. Later, she curled beside me on the couch, tracing my arm like it was still hers. I've missed this, she whispered. I know, I replied. I wasn't lying. I knew exactly what she was doing, rehearsing regret, building a narrative, one she could control if things unraveled. She didn't know she'd already lost the script. I filed the divorce paperwork with Alicia the following morning. Everything was prepped, timeline, transactions, photos. Ivy even provided background on Nora's boss, whose history included generous settlements with former partners. We scheduled a date, not for court, for exposure. That evening, I invited Nora out. Told you I had a surprise planned, I said, smiling. She lit up, curious, hopeful. We took the train to a small restaurant. Dim lighting, quiet tables, her favorite wine already waiting. She looked relaxed, even flirtatious. Is this a restart? She asked gently. Something like that. After dinner, I told her I had one last surprise. She laughed, held my hand as we walked home, completely unaware. When we stepped into the condo, I asked her to wait in the living room. Just a minute, I said. I want to set the mood. She settled into the couch, still smiling, sipping what was left of her wine. I turned off the lights, then clicked the remote. The TV lit up. Slide 1. A photo of her and her boss, his hand on her waist. The timestamp clear. A silence fell over the room like a dropped weight. Slide 2. Them leaving a hotel. Same night. Same timestamp. Slide 3. A screenshot of the brokerage statement. Her freedom fund. I said nothing. I let the silence do what words couldn't. Her smile disappeared. She sat upright. What is this? I stepped forward, folder in hand. Reality. No more pretending. Her eyes darted to the screen, then to me, then back again. This isn't what you think, she began. I can explain. These, I interrupted, are divorce papers, already signed by me. Just need your signature. She went quiet. The slideshow froze on an image of her beaming at the man she thought no one would ever trace. You can't be serious, she whispered. I'm not angry, I said. I'm done. She stood, pacing now. We were getting better. You were playing along. No, you were acting. I was observing. Then she stopped, turned, and dropped the final card. I'm pregnant, she said. I froze. She added, it's his, but I want you to raise the child. You'd be a better father. I stared at her. Then I said quietly, then I hope he learns from my example. I walked to the door. She didn't follow. As it clicked shut behind me, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. I stepped out of the condo into the hallway, phone buzzing in my pocket. It was Nora. Nora, please don't do this tonight. I'm scared. I stared at the message, thumb hovering. But I didn't reply, not out of cruelty because the truth had already spoken. Silence wasn't revenge. It was closure. Outside, the city moved on. Horns, headlights, sirens. Nothing had changed, except everything had. Ivy pulled up 5 minutes later. No words, just unlocked the door. I got in. We didn't speak. Not at first. We just sat with it. You did it, she said eventually. Not celebration, just recognition. Yeah, I answered. I did. I looked at my hands. They weren't shaking. That surprised me. You okay? She asked. I considered lying, pretending I was strong, untouched. Instead, I told the truth. I'm not sad, and that's what scares me. I thought I'd feel wrecked, or angry, or victorious, but I don't. What do you feel? I looked out the window. Free. She smiled just barely. You earned that. We drove in silence through blocks I no longer wanted to claim. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew what it wouldn't include. Lies disguised as love. At her place, Ivy didn't ask if I wanted to stay. She just left the door open behind her. I followed. The next morning, sunlight came through her kitchen window. It didn't feel symbolic, just real. She placed a plate in front of me, eggs, toast, avocado. No grand gestures, just breakfast. You forgot the butter, I said, almost smiling. No, I didn't, she replied, sliding a small dish across the table. We drank our coffee out on the balcony. No scripts, no tension, just quiet. Then Ivy asked, now that it's done, what's next? I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. Remember who I was, I said finally, before I let someone erase me. She nodded. That guy I met at orientation? She said. The one who made everyone laugh? Ate donuts before noon? Designed with instinct, not apology. That guy, I said. I lost him. No, you didn't, she said. You just stopped listening to him. Over the next few months, I stayed quiet. I didn't post. I didn't explain. Nora tried, once, an email titled Closure. I archived it without reading. I wasn't interested in her version of the story. What mattered now was rebuilding slowly, honestly. Ivy and I didn't rush anything. We didn't label it. We coexisted side by side. Shared errands. Late-night brainstorming. Inside jokes about paint swatches. No expectations. Just ease. And in that space something grew. Something real. At work I took on more. Spoke up in meetings. Clients started asking for me by name. I wasn't the reliable guy anymore. I was the lead. I stopped shrinking to fit. Then one day, I got an invite to speak at the Midwest Housing and Design Conference. Keynote slot. I said yes. Ivy helped pick the tie, something bold. Something that reminded her, she said, of the fire I used to carry. Conference day came fast. The lobby buzzed. Polished voices, pressed suits. I walked in with calm confidence, introduced myself without apology. And then I saw her, Nora, by the coffee table. No glow, no heels, just a stroller beside her and the man she gave it all up for, her boss, tapping his phone while she adjusted the blanket over their baby. She looked up. Our eyes met. No bitterness, no rage, just a long, quiet look. Then I nodded. Once. She didn't smile. She just watched me walk away. 20 minutes later, I stepped off the stage to applause. Someone had asked what inspired my boldest work. Sometimes, I'd said, broken blueprints are the best place to start. Afterward, Ivy found me in the hallway. I'm proud of you, she said. I'm proud of me too. We left the building hand in hand, the wind cooler than expected. Behind us, Nora stood in a corner of the lobby. Still, alone, next to a man already halfway gone. A year passed. 12 months since I closed the condo door behind me and walked into the unknown. Not a dramatic exit, just a decision. Quiet, steady, final. In that year, Ivy and I never forced the next step. No proclamations, no expectations. We simply existed beside each other. Laughed without keeping score. Listened without judging. We didn't rush to define what we were. We just let it be real. On weekends, we took walks, got groceries, argued over who made the stronger playlist. I helped her repaint her kitchen. She helped me rework my portfolio. At night, we watched documentaries and shared takeout. No grand romance, just something true. And that was enough. Somewhere along the way, we stopped calling it healing and started calling it ours. At work, I stepped fully into the lead designer role. I was no longer just the reliable guy behind the renderings. My name was on project pitches. My voice held weight in the room. I wasn't afraid to speak anymore, even when it ruffled feathers. I rebuilt my career the same way I rebuilt myself, brick by brick. Not for revenge. Not for image. For clarity. Every now and then, I'd get emails or messages from people who'd known Nora and me. Some well-meaning, some nosy. I didn't answer. I had no desire to correct the record. The truth wasn't mine to perform, it was mine to live. One evening, Ivy and I sat on her balcony watching traffic slow below. She sipped her tea, legs curled under her. I leaned back, arms resting on the chair. You think she ever looks back? I asked. Ivy didn't hesitate. Maybe, but not for the reason you think. I nodded. I wasn't asking because I missed Nora. I didn't. I asked because I used to think people like her always landed on their feet. But now I understood something else. People who burn bridges often end up standing alone on the wrong side of the water. Sometime later, I saw Nora again. Not at a conference. Not in passing. She requested a meeting through her lawyer. We sat in a sterile office, papers on the table between us. She looked tired. Not sick. Just drained. The kind of fatigue that doesn't come from parenting or work, but from constantly managing a life built on pretense. I'm not here to reopen anything, she said quickly. I just thought. You deserve to hear it. I said nothing. I thought I was reclaiming control, she continued. But really, I just wanted to feel important again. I nodded. Not out of agreement, out of acknowledgement. And now? I asked. She sighed. Now I realize you weren't the one who made me feel small. That was me. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Some truths aren't meant to be answered. I'm sorry, she said finally. And this time she meant it. I stood, gathered my coat. I hope you find peace, Nora. Not approval. Peace. She blinked, but didn't argue. And that was it. No revenge. No breakdowns. Just a closed loop. When I stepped outside, I called Ivy. Want to meet at that spot on 9th? I asked. Already on my way, she said. Later, sitting across from her at the cafe, I realized how different life looked when you stop performing strength and start living it. Ivy never asked me to be anyone. She just held space until I remembered how to show up. That night, as we walked back to her place, she said something that stuck. You know, you don't have to keep waiting for the next crisis. You're allowed to enjoy things now. It hit me harder than I expected, because for the first time I believed it. Months later, we moved in together. Not as an announcement, just as a choice. She cleared space in her closet. I reorganized my schedule to cook dinner once a week. Badly, but consistently. There were no milestones, just momentum. One evening, while flipping through channels, Ivy turned to me. "Do you ever wish it had all gone differently?" I thought about that. "No," I said, "because then I wouldn't be here." She smiled. "Not the kind you give when you win. The kind you give when you finally stop losing."